Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Can you hear me okay? Sometimes the recordings are a little quieter than I imagine. Maybe I need to adjust the microphone. Anyway, welcome to today's sharing of Harmonize2Energize. My name is Terry Matthews. I have been a practitioner stroke self-help teacher of JIN SHIN JYUTSU for somewhat over 30 years, and it is my joy and my pleasure to share aspects of the healing arts in Harmonize2Energize, and in particular, I've been concentrating on the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU. More recently, though, I've been reflecting on how Mary Burmeister, that is, who brought JIN SHIN JYUTSU to the West, for anyone who's completely brand new, she reflected that JIN SHIN JYUTSU by itself wasn't a complete solution to harmonizing one's life. There are other aspects of our life that created the field of energy that, well, she didn't use that word field, but basically that's what it means. So in future, I'm considering maybe once every 2 months, introducing modalities that dovetail with JIN SHIN JYUTSU, because their basic fundamental is about energy and how we can balance and harmonize it. And that really is what the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU is as well. That is its primary aim, to harmonize. And in the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU, we do that with the knowledge that there are energy pathways in our body which are controlled by what acupuncturists call points and what acupressure people like us in JIN SHIN JYUTSU call safety energy locks. And if you think about electrical circuits and resistors, you're not far off the understanding. It's a controlling of the movement of energy to allow the most balanced flow of this energy, chi or ki or life force, whichever term you're familiar with, to move congruently through the body and therefore keep all our cells, organs, and all their functions in balance. How does that work? Well, we simply place our hands on these safety energy locks, or our fingers, back of our hands, or our thumbs. These safety energy locks, 26 in total, are left and right of the midpoint, which is the spine. Please mute yourself, thank you very much. And 3 in the arm. They all have definitions and relationships to one another. They all work independently and interdependently of one another. So there is a synchronization that goes on. Mary Burmeister's teacher, Master Jiro Marai, was a scientist, and apparently he mapped the positions of these safety energy locks on the body through several ways. One was mathematical. I've not yet met anyone who can actually understand, or at least explain to me how he did that mathematically. However, that's one understanding. The other understanding is that in Japan, these temples for the Shinto tradition, there's 26 of them, and the energy locks on the body synchronize with these Shinto temples on the island of Japan. That all sounds a little bit mystical. Well, the mystery unfolds as we experience JIN SHIN JYUTSU in its entirety through placing our hands on the energy locks and witnessing or observing how this energy is in harmony or not through our body. Now, today I'm going to continue with our journey of second depth. A depth, for anyone who doesn't know, my understanding of a depth is a level of awareness, consciousness, energy, dimension, whichever word feels good to you, rather like the 7 levels of the rainbows, the colors of the rainbow. As you move either from the subtler to the dense or from the dense to the subtler, you have different frequencies and vibrations of energy oscillating around. And at the most subtlest level, although scientists keep trying to narrow them down further and further, are particles, atoms, molecules, photons, quarks, call them what you will. There is an understanding at one level these particles are all vibrating in a certain wavelength. And they move, basically. And how they move depends on how congruent we are in our thinking. In JIN SHIN JYUTSU, we talk about 3 levels of thoughts, words, and deeds, or it's interpreted as bust line, waistline, and hip line. And these are related in the body to chest area, waistline beneath the rib cage, and then, well, the rib cage, and then beneath the rib cage. And when these 3 areas, by the way, 3 relates to harmony of relationships. When there is a harmonic between these 3, we are in harmony. But the key principle is our attitude. And what I've been talking about as we move through the different constellations of how energy moves in relation from above us to below us, is that these energies are fundamentally held by the way we interrelate, the way we integrate. And certain levels of our awareness are at the elemental level, the most basic level of being, the 5 elements. And these elements coexist, but they have patterns within them. So we start with the wood element, we have the fire element, we have the earth element, we have the air or the metal element, water element, so on and so forth. And these elements, they make up the constitution of who we are physically. And they also have relationships with those energy functions that move through those energy pathways, which are tweaked by those safety energy locks. If you're lost already, that's okay, because sometimes the mind wants to ask so many questions, it forgets that this ideally is a feeling experience. You get to where the energy is in your body. So we've been talking about second depth, second dimension, and that incorporates the balancing of the lung and the large intestine. And last week we looked at some simple ways of balancing the large intestine. And that gives you a ground zero of where you're at with that particular energy field. And from that, we can then say, oh, that was okay for me. I felt the energy flowed well, or no, that didn't feel so harmonious. And we talk about doing breath work, 36 breaths, to help facilitate energy to move through much more congruently. It's actually at the subtlest level, light, and then the densest level, oxygen. And by doing these 36 breaths, please mute yourself, thank you very much, we are enabled to get that energy moving as efficiently as possible. All right, still with me? And at this elemental level, and for those of you that have studied JIN SHIN JYUTSU at the textbook 1 and 2 level, you will know we're talking about the lumbar circle, and there's a Starman which is now sold, regardless of whether you do the study or not. But it's an understanding of how the energy functions of the elements support, energize, or disharmonize. And if we found last week that our large intestine energy wasn't feeling harmonized, it's possible that there are other organ function energies imbalancing or disharmonizing them. So we look at ways of removing that imbalance. And then finally, we go back to the state of origin, the ground zero, and we see if we need to revive that energy once we've unburdened it and we energize it. And then if none of that works, bottom line, Mary would always say, would be your attitude, back to our thinking, emotional responses. And I would say, and maybe others would agree or not, that 80% of our issues begin, the root is in our thinking, emotional responses, which ultimately affect our harmonization or our immunity, all the attitudes, the worries, the fears, the angers, the sadnesses, and the try-tos. Mary Burmeister said that some of the bigger labels that people suffer are actually in the second depth, which is what we're dealing with, the sadness and the grief. She would say that, and interestingly, there are 15 of these energy locks in that depth. So it's quite an outlay there, quite a outlay, that can get out of harmony, can bring forth the manifestation of inflammations like the bigger labels that we're familiar with, that people can leave their body through. Inflammation can become the enemy of the immune system. So attitudes, a big deal, but we'll get to them as we move through this journey of looking at how energy flows or doesn't flow harmoniously. So today, large intestine can be disharmonized by bladder function energy, which is water element, or small intestine function energy, which is fire element. Isn't that interesting? The relationship to that depth that Mary said she believed was the cause of the bigger labels is about the balancing of the two major elements of the body, fire and water. Interesting. Just as an aside, the Chinese, in traditional Chinese medicine, think it's the wood element. They think that an imbalance in the liver, gallbladder energy, or the attitude of anger is the greatest cause of the biggest issues. I don't have issues with either of those interpretations, because either way, with attitudes, we're holding on to something that isn't necessarily helping us. Anger is a tough one because it burns through a lot of our harmony, a lot of our virtue, but then so does grief and sadness if we hold on too long. So without further ado, we're not going to be holding on to our grief and sadness. If possible, we're going to begin to produce an energy field between us and our body that will reduce some of that sadness. I say some of it, it may reduce all of it. However, I don't know where you began, and I don't know where your sadness or grief or disharmonizer is going to end. It's an interaction, it's a synchronization with many, many factors there. But we'll begin and we'll base this on the 36 breaths. And for those of you that are new, the practice is we hold energy locks either through our fingers or through energy locks on the body, and we exhale and inhale, which equals 1 breath, 9 times, times 4, which is 36, which adds up to 9. And Mary, in her study of numerology, reminded us that 9 represents end of a cycle, beginning of a new. So that's the thinking. And the process is we have to begin to let go through our breathing, letting go, breathing out, and then receiving cosmic purified energy, which is the light. So we let out all the, if you want to say, the darker areas in our energy field, the blockages, for want of a better word, by exhaling. We let them go. And then we breathe in what we do need. And then gradually, as we go on this journey, those attitudes or those experiences, those blockages begin to transform. Was Rome built in a day? I don't know. I don't think so. And depending on where you are, it'll take some corresponding amount of time in proportion. But here's the magical thing. When we begin these kinds of journey, the energy is on our side. The energy seeks harmony. It doesn't want disharmony because it slows down its processes in the universe of keeping all the planets, all the laws of the universe in balance. So it doesn't make any sense. It works with disharmony because that's a part of the process of transformation. But its main aim is to keep everyone in equilibrium. And the journey continues, which, by the way, was the name of a course that JIN SHIN JYUTSU once taught. And I don't know when the journey ends. It definitely continues because there are all these different levels that we move through from subtle to dense. Anyway, maybe too much information. Let's begin the practice. So the first simple self-help flow that I want to begin with is going to be the first step of the bladder flow. The second is going to be the second step of the bladder flow. And these, by the way, are the self-help bladder flow. And the third set of 9 breaths is going to be the first step of the small intestine flow and the last step of the small intestine flow. So, first step of the bladder flow. For those that are new or anybody that has an issue with exhaling, and sometimes we do, and we're holding on, you might want to focus on the left side, the left flow to begin with, because as energy moves down, it moves through the left side, letting go first before it receives on the right side. If you think your exhaling is pretty good, you might want to begin with the right side. The acid test for me is to check the safety energy locks that we're working with left and right to see if that's what you want to work with. So with the bladder self-help, if it's the left side, you can begin with the right hand swiveling round to the left side of your neck between the tendons on the neck. Safety energy lock 12. That's the left side. Or you want to see what the right side is going on, put the left side on the right. Or you could have done that and just decide which side is tighter. All right. So that would generally give you, that first step will generally give you an idea of which way you're going to go. Because the second step of the first step, if you like, sorry if that's confusing, is the coccyx. And that's just the base of the spine, one area. So anyway, for my experience today, I could go either way, but I'm going to go to the left side. So my right hand's going to go on the left, safety energy lock 12, between the 2 tendons on the neck. And the left hand is going to go on my coccyx, my tailbone. And just relax, if you can, dropping those shoulders, close your eyes, stun your cell phones, muzzle your cat and dog. No. Just stroke them a little. Smile sweetly to them, send them some good energy. Just basically what I'm saying is the least amount of distractions, the better. Keep your back as straight as possible. If you've got a back injury, use a cush to support or whatever you have to support your back. And breathe out. No particular way, through the mouth, through the nose, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Whatever is comfortable for you. And what we're waiting to hear or feel is a pulse at these 2 areas of the body. Safety energy lock 12 here on the neck, thy will versus my will, and the coccyx. So just Make that connection. Relax, feel those shoulders dropping. I often like to think of it as being in a lift. And as the lift is moving down, you get your shoulders are moving with you. And you're going down, 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 all the way, allowing the body to relax. Now, a breath in Jin Shin, I said, is an exhale and an inhale. The exhale actually moves from safety energy lock 4 at the back of the head through the hip line, 15, safety energy lock 15, to the big toe. So, even though our hands are where they are, the whole body is breathing. It's a whole body breath. We're going from head to toe, skin to bone. Here we go. Breathe out. And then naturally breathe in. Receive that breath. And that breath is going back from the big toe up through the hip line 15-2. And of course, the coccyx is there. So obviously it's going to connect there too. All the way up through the 12 and to the 4. That was one breath. 8 more breaths. 8 more breaths. Here we go. And this is in your time, not my time. Your metabolic rate is different to mine. But it's not a race. And just allow the exhale to let go of the dirt, dust, and greasy grime, as Mary B would say, so that we can open those channels to receive cosmic purified energy. Cosmic everywhere. It's purified energy from the highest dimensions, we hope, coming through us and moving the energy up, ascending. And as we breathe out, the energy is moving down, descending. Head to toe, and then skin to bone. Those safety energy locks work at 2 dimensions. They allow energy to go at a perpendicular and horizontal level. And the energy spirals, by the way. Spirals in a clockwise direction. That encourages harmony. Spirals down the front, clockwise, and up the back, clockwise. And if you can feel the pulse at these 2 areas of the body, the neck and the coccyx. And it's the same as the radial artery pulse. Usually first you're going to pick up the blood pulse because that's closest to the surface. But actually what we're ultimately listening for is the energy pulse, which the blood pulse follows. It's at a deeper level than the blood, subtler level. And when you feel a vibration or a pulsation at the neck and the coccyx, you understand, or we understand, that that means these two areas of the body are communicating. Energy is moving between them. And as it moves, it's unblocking resistance. Like logs in a stream, it's moving them out of the way, or dissolving them, transforming them. Bladder and its partner, the kidney flow, are all about flow in the body, the water element. The thing that obstructs flow in this element is fear and false evidence appearing real, as Mary B would say. Probably the biggest cause of all the blockages at the attitude level is fear. What you don't know, right? Second depth lung and large intestine, once its pathways are clear, clears our consciousness, our awareness, our thinking. And then we can break through some of these fears. Because most of the things that we're fearful about won't manifest. It could be argued that fears are a trick of the ego mind, attempting to block us from finding the fullness of the universal oneness. Because once we find that, we are free. We are free of fear. We're totally free. We're at the soul level, the golden universal light level, the oneness, the wholeness, the harmony. The mind has a role to process information, but too often it wants to control. Why does it want to control? Because it's frightened that it doesn't know enough. Desire, my friends. There's a saying from the Sufis, I think, if you want to be greedy for anything, be greedy for the generation, operation, destroyer, universal, creator, the oneness. Look for that. And as you reach the 9th exhalation, inhalation, just pause, go into what I like to call the neutral zone, and just observe. How do you feel? Is there congruency between those two areas on the body? Pulsation? If there isn't, do not worry. Sometimes we need to do more than 9 exhalation inhalations. Not a race. Okay, so I've been working with the first and last step of a flow because the first step gives the energy a push and the last step gives it a pull. Now, the last step of this flow will be the same side, little toe. If you're flexible enough, take your left hand if you're doing the left flow, or your right hand if you're doing the right flow, away from the coccyx and grab your pinky toe. Now, if that's too much of a stretch, take this hand away, and the 12 relates to waistline 14. You can place that hand, that right hand or left hand, underneath the left or right rib cage. And I'm going to do that because I don't feel that flexible at the moment. So whichever way you do it, we're now the left or right hand is holding the left or right little toe, and the right hand is holding the left or right 12 or 14. Here we go, second set of 9 exhalation inhalations. Exhale. Inhale. And the inhale is a receiving. It's not a grabbing or a taking. It's a natural receiving. The exhale may be a little bit more conscious and active, because most of us are not used to letting go. All we're doing on one level is aligning with the natural rhythm of the universe. Sounds simple enough. However, what we see and perceive and realize is that it's a journey, and the journey sometimes has obstacles. Don't worry about it. Don't be frightened. Look upon it as allowing the energy to go its own way. You know, there's enough abundance in the universe for everything and everyone. And fear is often about we don't think we got enough or lack. So if that's your fear construct, realize when you look to the stars how many of them there are. Look at the waves on the ocean. And so maybe just doing these 2 steps has opened up a blockage that was preventing the large intestine from properly letting go. You might see or feel that experience as an immediate desire to go to the restroom, or you might not. but feel where the energy is right now in this pathway. How is it flowing for you? And again, as you come to the 9th exhalation, inhalation, slip into the neutral zone and just observe. Did you feel the pulses between the two places? Or didn't you? No worries. Maybe do a few more breaths later on to make that connection. You are uniquely where you're at this time in space. Oh, and by the way, space is where all the transformation happens. That 9th depth Mary called space. Could call it the vacuum. It's that gap that we allow transformation to happen in. On the London Underground, they're always saying, mind the gap. I always say, don't mind the gap. Allow the gap to transform you and all your thoughts, all your words, and all your actions. Okay, so that's one potential disharmonizer of large intestine, the good old bladder self-outflow. The second two are going to be the first and last step of the small intestine flow. And with this one, it's going to be left hand or right hand on the 11. And the 11 is close to the neck here, right on the shoulder, the hub. Find which one is tight for you. They might both be. In that case, I would suggest go to the left to encourage the exhale. And the other hand, the right hand, if you're on the left shoulder here, is going to go on the right 13 nipple area. If that's sensitive, go into the center on the sternum, draw a line from the nipple to the center. And that's the first step of the small intestine flow. And let us begin. 9 exhalations, inhalations. Here we go. Feel your connection to the earth beneath as you do these flows. Feel your feet almost glued to the floor. If you need to wriggle your toes to feel them, do so, squeeze them. And feel that connection. That's where that energy needs to let go to, and then be regenerated and revitalized through the earth energy, as well as the universal cosmic energy that's all around us. The earth element is part of that cycle of energy. And it's that part which grounds us, which makes us feel that we're connected. Some of us don't want to be connected to this plane. I get it. A lot of fear, a lot of tension out in the world, if you like, or in our world, in our inner world or our outer world, sometimes prevents us from feeling connected. However, if we don't, we cannot release and receive as efficiently. When small intestine energy is harmonized, anxiety can be reduced. Again, the mind is conjuring up memories, perhaps, thoughts around lack, whatever, anxiety generally, over worrying, overwhelm. Breathe out. And in. And just observe the energy, how it's flowing through your energy channels, through the safety energy locks, on its journey to harmony. We harmonize to energize. We need energy. You know, we can't sleep properly if we don't have enough energy. That energy will serve us if we allow it. So let go of all those anxious thoughts. Receive the cosmic, purified, harmonious energy. One level, as the Beatles said, in Strawberry Fields Forever, nothing is real, nothing to get up about. That's at the level of, is anything real? An experiment I often do with myself is to just imagine or allow that concept of nothing is real float into my consciousness. It's actually a very, very powerful way of letting go. Because if nothing is real, what is there to hold on to? So let go, let go. let go. Receive, receive, receive. So when you come to the 9th exhalation, inhalation, the last step of the small intestine is you're going to take your hand away from the 13, chest nipple area. And again, if you're very flexible, you'll reach down and hold your big toe, safety energy lock 7. If that's too much, take that hand away from the 11, same side, and put it in the 15, because the 11 and the 15 are related. So you can go from there to the groin, for those of you that are new in the groin area. And hold that same side, big toe. Breathe out and in, receiving the breath 9 more times. Here we go. So allowing the cosmic purified energy to fill us, to help us remove obstacles in our journey, and bring us to greater degrees of harmony. So once more, as you reach the 9th exhalation, inhalation, just observe how you're feeling. You may at this point release your hands from the energy locks you were holding and just place them in your lap. And just, you know, when we were working the large intestine flow last week, we had one hand on that hub 11 and the other hand on the index finger. See if doing these flows to release the disharmonizers has made any difference whatsoever to that whole large intestine area there. Maybe you just need to do it more. Or maybe there is the next layer that needs looking at, the attitude level. So there are many ways to approach harmonizing. Specifically, JIN SHIN JYUTSU offers several opportunities for us to harmonize. So just notice how you feel. Is that something you want to practice or not? Okay. So how are we doing, everyone? Any questions? Gabriella, what do I do if I cannot touch the back of my neck or top of my shoulders for longer than 1 second? Yeah, that's when you do the exchange. That's when you understand that in the subdivisions of the body, Mirai Sensei found that the soul, the bust line, waistline, hip line areas, subdivisions, are also found at different levels of the body too. So I said, you know, if you found that neck area 12 difficult, you can go to the 14, which at the torso level is also waistline and will help open the 12. All right. Hopefully that's answered that question. Is that right? Is that what you wanted to know, Gabriella?
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
It's difficult unless I cross, which is not supposed to do. You know?
This is supposed to do business. You know, in the end, you do what is comfortable. Yeah, there are more efficient ways of holding these flows, for sure. But the truth, my understanding, and my reality to a degree, is that the energy knows where it needs to go. It'll just go to where it needs its destination a little slower. That's all. So anyone who worries a little about, you know, doing it exactly as the book says, I understand. Mirai Sensei and Mary put down the most efficient ways. And sometimes it's not always possible to hold in those ways. So crossing hands, sometimes doing a flow that crosses over on the same side, that's okay too in certain circumstances. It's our mind that gets in there and goes, oh no, the book said this. Yes, ideally.
But aren't we actually directing our energies with our own intention?
You know, the universe has its own intention. If you have an intention at all, it's harmony. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the law that the universe is working with here. So you just think or posit harmony, and then watch what happens. You know, Mirai Sensei experimented. Yes, he studied as well, but he also experimented, and he found what was most efficient, and then he worked on other people, and then it became an art. But he never said you can't do this. He just said this was more efficient.
Yes, because this is how it was discovered. This is how it was built up in the beginning when there was no manual.
Yeah. So just play a bit, you know,
Yes.
don't worry too much. I've got a question here. Does the energy flow between safety engine 12 and 25 going through safety level 13 and 14 and so on till it reaches? You know, it's actually more, my understanding is that those energy locks down the back will be opened rather than those down the front. But obviously, as you open energy up the back, if the front is clear, yes, the energy will then go down the front. And that's the whole thing with Jin Shin Jyutsu, getting energy to move up the back, down the front. That is the journey at the supervisor level. So ideally, yes. Susan, does that make sense? It's not a silly question.
Thank you. Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions? No. Reality is just a mental construct. Yes. All right. So what's the time? 11:56. Okay, I'm just going to share the screen because I know there's a couple of things coming up that some of you may be interested in joining. Tomorrow, Susie Plattner is doing a live online webinar, Jin Shin Jyutsu First Aid Projects. That is going to be from 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. No prerequisites. All the information is here, and there's the fee, and you can enroll via PayPal. And Lisa Gritton is your organizer, and you can email her here. That's one of the 2-hour webinars, special topic webinars. Some people who are brand new have sometimes been intimidated by the information, but I would suspect, knowing a little bit about first aid projects and how Susie teaches, that I wouldn't be concerned if you're new. Susie is a very personable teacher. She has a great way of making things simple. So if that's something that you want to look at, study, research, review, whatever, tomorrow, Susie, 2 to 4, and click on there. That ad, you may have, if you're on Jin Shin Jyutsu Soul Mind Body's mailing list, you may have received. Otherwise, go on to Jin Shin Jyutsu spiritmindbody.com, look them up, JSJSMB, and sign up under classes. All right. And then I'm going to share. Yeah, it's Susie again. And she's actually doing her first live, not her particular first, but the first live one since COVID in San Diego, California, from May the 17th to 21st. And again, excuse me, this is a 5-day class. It's in 2 parts, starting Wednesday, May the 17th till May the 19th, and then part 2, Saturday, May the 20th to May 21st. And your organizers are Lisa Gritton, there's the information, and Linda Jimenez. No, Jimenez, I don't know how that's pronounced. Apologies if got it wrong. Here's how you sign up. Here's the fees, new and review. Review means you've done one 5-day class at least before. If you only did part 1, you can only review rate at part 1. If you've done both, you can review rate for both. So anyway, I'm actually going to be on part 2 myself. I'm actually going to fly over there to be with Susie and Lisa and Linda and whoever else comes. Those of you that have seen Susie in action on the online webinars, again, she has a very personable way of explaining the information. And the years that I've studied, I found Susie's work very well structured, very clear. And I know a lot of new people that were on that webinar in February found pretty much the same. So I'm not just plugging it because I'm going to be there. I'm plugging it because for those of you that are new, this would be a very, very good place to start if you want to be a practitioner. Susie is a new instructor, but a very fine one. And anyway, up to you. Check out the information and maybe give Lisa a call or Linda, and any questions you have, you can ask them. All right, well, I hope you're all doing well, and I'm hoping you're going to have a... Mary didn't like the word hope. It's kind of a bit of a projection. Okay, so have a really good day, rest of it, weekend, the rest of the week. Next week, we have a mystery presenter. I could be mean and tell you who it is, but then it takes a mystery away. We do have a presenter. We've actually got a couple in May, and I think 2 or 3 in June. Things are beginning to build up again, so I'm looking forward to introducing the mystery presenter next week to you. I have absolutely no idea what the mystery presenter is going to present, but that's part of the mystery too. But join us. I'll send the email out. The replay for this week will be available 24 to 48 hours. And some of you may have noticed, if you've been to Soul Healing, where I cache my information, that I've put a different webinar there based on my work with soul healing. I'm working with someone who had a gallbladder condition. It's a testimonial, which I was talking about. And that's going to be how I'm going to segue in the future into other areas, other modalities, which support, synchronize with JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And I'll write to you all about that and see what you think. It's an exploration that I've spent most of my life doing, and I enjoy looking at different ways of perceiving how energy can be harmonized. There are many, many different ways. And lots of the instructors for JIN SHIN JYUTSU, by the way, also have looked at different trajectories of the art. Mary was never someone that said you can't look at this aspect or that. That's why some instructors would dive deep into numerology or astrology more than others. So variety is a spice of life. So if that's you, then take a look at that video when you're on the replay. Soul to Soul Healing site. All right, folks, take care, and I will turn the recording off. Stop. Oh, good.